zeros of the function represented by the quadratic expression 2x squared plus x minus 3. Charlie, what is the question asking for? Okay. Caitlin, can you tell me another word for zeros? Anybody? X-intercepts. Okay, so the easiest way to find x-intercepts would be to what? Graph it. So y equals 2x squared plus x minus 3. When you graph it, you see that it has how many x-intercepts? 2, and that kind of makes sense because every answer choice has 2 answers for x. One of them is where? Positive 1. Okay, so x equals positive 1, x equals positive 1, x equals negative 1, x equals negative 1. The other one is not at a whole number, but we do notice that it's between what two numbers? That's 0, that's 1, that's 2. So it's between 1 and 2. But more specifically, between negative 1 and negative 2. So now you just need to figure out, is this fraction between negative 1 and 2 or this one? What's the easiest way to figure that out? Turn them into decimal. How do you turn negative 3 over 2 into a decimal? Negative 3, or you can just type in negative 3 divided by 2. Negative 1.5. Is that between negative 1 and negative 2? Yes, but just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and type in negative 2 over 3. Negative 2 divided by 3. Is that number between negative 1 and negative 2? No, it's between 0 and negative 1. So it has to be A. A question like that should not be that hard. I know I'm the math teacher, but to me that's not a hard question when you can just graph it and look at where it crosses. All you really have to be able to do is understand that zeros are x-intercepts, and even if you don't get that, it says x equals, so don't you think it's going to be looking for where it hits the x-axis? Number 37, what is the vertex of the graph of f of x equals x squared plus 10x minus 9? So this time, William, what is the question asking you to figure out? Well, you don't have to think too hard. Just tell me what the question says. What's it asking you to find? What is the vertex? Okay, well, what kind of graph is this function going to make? A parabola. It starts on x squared, so doesn't that mean it's going to make a parabola? Now, this parabola is going to be positive. It's going to open up. How do I know that? Right. Your front number is a positive 1, which means it'll open up. And in that case, the vertex would be at the bottom. So you're looking for the coordinate of that point. So the easiest way to find that would be to graph it. So y equals x squared plus 10x minus 9. Okay, when it graphs, I can kind of see a teeny bit of something over there, and then over here, but it's going up and right, so that means that it bottomed out down here. The vertex is down there, correct? Well, to get to that point, wouldn't you first have to go left, which means your x value is negative, and that rules out what choices? A and B are out, because A and B both say go right 5. C and D say left 5, but C says down 9, D says 34. Using your common sense, what do you think it is? Why? You would be able to see 9 because it goes down 10 units, and then if you're still not convinced, you could always look at the table, go to negative 5. Shh. Yes, Elio? Okay. The videos, you can keep it. Okay, look, negative 5, negative 34. There it is on the table. So D. Negative 5, negative 9 doesn't exist on that graph, or it would have been on the table. All right, any questions about that one? No? Number 38. Which of these is the result of completing the square for the expression? Raise your hand if you remember all steps of completing the square. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So more than likely, you are not going to remember this. And that's completely understandable, especially when you're having to remember stuff from the whole year. So, if you don't know how to complete the square, what else might you try to figure out the right answer? Well, but look at these answers. Graph it. Let's graph it. Y equals x squared plus 8x minus 30. Okay, but look, when we graph that, we don't really see a lot of the parabola, do we? It looks like we only see the right side. Please try to focus. We're running out of review days. We only see the right side. So this is what I would suggest. Now go back to y equals, and in y2, graph your first choice. Okay, so we're going to graph the x plus 4 squared minus 30. Did that make the same parabola as this one did? No, so A is not right. So now move on and graph B in the y2 spot. It's x plus 4 squared minus 46. Did that make the same parabola? Yes, and even though your calculator will not be color, you'll still only see one line even after both have graphed, so you'll know it was the same thing. Okay, so you can do that without even knowing how to complete the square. Number 39. The expression negative x squared plus 70x minus 600 represents a company's profit for selling x items. So x in the equation represents items. For which number of items, so we're trying to find out the values of x, sold is the company's profit equal to 0. So what would you do? Right, graph, well, or you could do that. She said we could plug in each one and figure out which one made it equal 0. Like if you plugged in 0, 0 squared is 0, 70 times 0 is, so aren't you going to be left with negative 600? And we're trying to figure out which one will equal 0. Then you could do the same thing. You could plug in 35, continue in that process where you're just plugging in like negative 35 squared plus 70 times 35 minus 600 to see if it equals 0. Or there's an alternative. You could graph it. If you go to the graph, y equals, clear out what's in there from the last question, and now type in negative x squared plus 70x minus 600. Okay, do you see the graph appear on there? I do. Yeah. Barely over here at what number? 10. Okay, and look, if you go to your table and you go to 10, look what I see at 10. 0. But then it also says 60. If you continue down the table all the way to 60, you will see 0 again. So it's 10 and 60. Now watch. If you had plugged that in, negative x squared plus 70x minus 600. Plug in a 10 for both x's and type that in your calculator. Well, y'all, think about it. 10 squared is a 100. Attach a negative to it. 70 times 10 is 700. Negative 100 plus 700 is 600, but then take away 600 again and you're left with 0. So see how when plugging in 10 into both x's it made a 0? What do you think is going to happen when you plug in a 60 into both x's? Which would be 600. And you get 0 again, right? Shh. Please pay attention. Okay, question number 40. A garden measuring 8 feet by 12 feet will have a walkway around it. The walkway has a uniform width, and the area covered by the garden and the walkway is 192 square feet. What is the width of the walkway? Did anybody get an answer for this one? What'd you guess? This one was harder. Anybody get a different answer? Nope. It's A. Okay. Good guess. So now we need to, I'm a visual person, so even when I was working this out the other day, I drew a rectangle representing the garden, and I went ahead and labeled it with a width of 8 feet and a length of 12 feet. And then I said, okay, now I'm going to draw a walkway around it. And what did they tell you about that walkway? Well, first thing they say is it's uniform width, which doesn't that mean the width over here has to match up with the width over here? So I need to make this one a little wider to match it up over there. And then wouldn't it mean the width here and here have to match up as well? Okay, the width is the same all the way around. Okay, however wide it is there, it's the same width there, the same width there, and the same width there. Now, what did they tell us about the area covered by the garden and walkway? Right, the total area of this total thing now is 192 square feet. So any ideas how we could figure out how wide this pathway is, walkway? Yes, Austin? Okay. Okay, that's one way. That'll work. That's not even the way I did it. I just started looking at my choices, and I was like, okay, say the width is 2 feet. Wouldn't that mean this little distance is 2 feet, and this little distance is 2 feet, and this is 2 feet, and this is 2 feet? So that would make the total width of the garden and the walkway what? 12. It would make the total length of the garden and the walkway 2 plus 12 plus 2. 16. And what's 16 times 12? Because isn't that how you calculate area, length times width? What's 16 times 12? 192. So that's how I knew A was correct, because when I just tried it out with 2 feet, and I extended this by 2 feet there, 2 feet there, which is an addition of 4 on top of 8, so 12. And then 2 feet there and 2 feet there on top of 12 would be 16. And then I calculated the area, it matched up with 192. I know that's not an easy one, but do you at least understand it now that I explained it? Okay. 41. The formula for the area of a circle is A equals pi r squared. Which equation shows the formula in terms of r? What do they mean in terms of r? Look at all the answer choices. What do all the answer choices look like? Well, but more specifically, what I'm trying to get you to notice is that all the answer choices are r equals. So doesn't in terms of r just mean solve for r? Because all 4 of these have r by itself. So if you're trying to get r by itself, what would you do first? Not yet. Divide by pi. Okay, those would cancel, and you'd be left with a over pi equals r squared. Now to solve for r, what would you do? Square root it on both sides, but look, when you square root over here, you have to square root everything that's already over there. So everything goes up under, and r equals the square root of a over pi, which is c. Okay, those are pretty easy. You just have to use inverse operations to get the letter they told you to by itself. Because to get rid of a power of 2, you square root. They cancel each other out. Alright, number 42. What are the solutions to this equation? Okay, look at your answer choices. What kind of answer choices do you see? Or what are all of the answer choices? X values. So how can you easily find out the X values of something like this? Graph it. Y equals 2x squared minus 2x minus 12. Okay, it crosses in two places, which makes sense because there's two answers for every choice. And where are those two places? Negative 2, positive 3, so that would be C. Okay, number 43. What are the solutions to this equation? Isn't that the same kind of question as 42? So what should we do? Graph it. Y equals 6x squared minus x minus 40. Okay, it crosses in two places, which makes complete sense because every answer has two solutions. However, it doesn't cross at whole numbers, which also makes sense because do any answers have whole numbers? So, over here it crosses between what and what? 2 and 3. And on the left side it crosses between negative 2 and negative 3. So, does that help you eliminate any wrong answers? Don't you kind of know that one of your answers is going to be negative because it crosses between negative 2 and negative 3 and one of them is positive? So A and C are out because A has two negative answers and it didn't cross both times on the negative side, and C has two positive and it did not cross both times on the positive side of the x-axis. So now we have to decide which one of these are right. They're very similar. So what do you think you should do next? Right. We normally can understand things better when they're in decimal form. So how do you change negative 8/3 to a decimal? Right, just divide it. Negative 8 divided by 3 is negative 2.67. Okay, negative 8/3 is the same as negative 2.67. Now we need to change 5/2 to a decimal. What is 5/2 as a decimal? 2.5. Now look back at the graph. Which one of them looks more to be at 2.5? I would say the one on the left. That looks more like it's right in the middle of 2 and 3 than this one does. That one looks a little bit closer to 3. So it looks to me like the negative 2.5 is over there. So that would be the negative 5/2, and the positive 2.6 is on the right side, so 8/3. Does that make sense? Okay, turn to the next page. Number 44. Okay, what are the solutions to this equation? Okay, tell me if you're doing this, what would you do first? Before you can graph it though, what do you have to do? Right, you can't graph this one immediately because 14 is on the wrong side. So wouldn't you first, before graphing it, have to move 14 to this side? And when you do, it would become negative 14. Now graph it. X squared minus 5x minus 14. Please pay attention. You get a negative 2 and a positive 7. So the answer is C. Caitlin, I want you to move all the way back there. Well, you don't have to move to the very corner, but at least the second one. Just somewhere in that back corner. Okay, number 45. An object is thrown in the air with an initial velocity of 5 meters per second from a height of 9 meters. The equation h of t equals negative 4.9 t squared plus 5t plus 9, and it models the height of the object in meters after t seconds. So far, very wordy, but don't get intimidated because they gave you an equation, so at least you can do what? You can at least graph it. Even if you don't understand anything they just said, you have an equation that you can graph. About how many seconds does it take for the object to hit the ground? Okay, so let's graph it. Y equals negative 4.9 t squared plus 5t plus 9. Okay? We see it go up in the air. Over here, -1 is not really relevant in terms of this word problem because this is in seconds. And can you have -1 seconds? Where does the other side hit the ground? 2. So the answer is C. So even though that seemed like it was going to be a tough question, not really tough, right? Just take the equation or whatever they gave you and graph it, even if you don't understand the rest of it. Number 46. What explicit expression can be used to find the next term in the sequence? Okay, so if you had a question like this, what would you try first? Right, what would be your first move? What would you do first? Okay, right, find a pattern, right? From 2 to 8 is what? Well, yes, or up 6. Either way, yeah, I mean, it is times 4. From 8 to 18 is up 10. From 18 to 32 is up. And then from 32 to 50 is up 18. So this is not an arithmetic sequence because it did not add by the same number every time. To be arithmetic, it would have had to have been plus 6, plus 6, plus 6, plus 6. So also, I mean, well, no, it's not plus 4 every time. It's 4 more than the previous. Like first they add 6, but then the next time they add 10, which is 4 more. And then the next time they add 14, which is 4 more. But what I'm saying is that's not an arithmetic sequence. To be arithmetic, it has to jump by the exact same thing every time. It would have to add 6 every time. Okay, so this is another way of looking at this. This is sometimes hard for y'all to remember, but you've got to remember that in any sequence, you have a first term, a second term, a third term, a fourth term, a fifth term, and so on. What's the first term of the sequence? What's the second term? 8. Third term, and so on. You can use these numbers. Like if I take 2n, but in the n place I plug in 1 for first term. Does that create the first term? Yeah, 2 times 1 is 2. But now let's plug in 2 for second term. If I plug in 2 here, what's 2 times 2? And 4 is not the second term, letting me know that that is not the right expression. So then I would try it with 2n plus 6. If I plug in 1 for first term, does 2 times 1 plus 6 really create the first term? No, so it's out. Then I would try it with the third expression, 2n squared. I would plug 1 in the n place. What's 2 times 1 squared? No, what's 2? 1 squared is 1, 1 times 2 is 2. So it created the first term. It worked. Now let's plug in 2 for second term. When you plug in 2 for second term, what number is created? 8, which is the second term. Then when you would plug in 3 for third term, what number does that create? So see how when you plug in the number term, it is creating that term with this expression? So that's the right expression. Does that make sense? Okay, number 47. Number 47 seems very intimidating, but it's really not that tough, and if you pay attention, you'll understand it when I'm done. It's very wordy. The function s of t equals bt plus h minus 0.5 at squared represents the height of an object s from the ground after the time t when the object is thrown with an initial velocity of v at an initial height h and where a is the acceleration due to gravity, 32 feet per second squared. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do first. Because all that was just, I don't even remember what I read, okay, because that was just too much. I'm going to rewrite the equation at least. Okay, now it says, a baseball player hits a baseball 4 feet above the ground with an initial velocity of 80 feet per second. About how long will it take the baseball to hit the ground? So what are we trying to figure out? Okay, and what does that mean mathematically? Mathematically, like, what does it mean? How long will it take for the baseball to hit the ground? Where's the ground? 0 feet. So we would equal it to 0 because we're trying to figure out how long before it gets to 0 feet, the ground. Now, where could we place this 4 in this function? H. 4 feet is height, right? So it could go in the H place. Let me change the color just so it stands out. So in the H place, I'm putting 4. Where can we put 80 feet per second? Velocity. Velocity is 80 feet per second. So right here, 80 t. And now at the end, minus 0.5. A is acceleration. Do we have a number for acceleration? Acceleration 32. So times 32 t squared. This is a plus sign in case you can't tell because that t. Now I want you to graph this. Go to y equals and plug in 80x plus 4 minus 0.5 times 32x squared. Just turn the t's into x's when you try to graph it. Well, come show me what you typed in. Okay, look, 80x plus 4 minus 0.5 times 32x squared. Oh, because you used the negative sign right there instead of a minus, that's why. So here, Windows off, let me fix it. Zoom 6. We'll change it back to the normal window. Okay, so has everybody typed it in and graphed it? Yeah, it is. I can see, look, it leaves the ground here, it goes up. I can't tell how high it goes, but that's not what it's asking. Can I see when it comes down and hits the ground? And how many seconds did that take? 5. So yes, that question, wasn't simple, but does everybody at least now understand it? Okay, number 48. A cafe's annual income depends on X, the number of customers. The function I of X equals 4x squared minus 20x describes the cafe's total annual income. The function C of X equals 2x squared plus 5 describes the total amount the cafe spends in a year. So I'm going to write down some important information. I see that they gave me a function for I of X, income. And they gave me a function for C of X, which is cost. And that's 2x squared plus 5. The cafe's annual profit, P of X, which you can see every answer is in, is the difference between the income and the amount spent. So wouldn't that be cost? So what do you think you're going to do? Subtract like terms. Look, difference means subtract, and you're subtracting the income, which will go first because it was listed first, and the cost, which is 2x squared plus 5. So now that you have it set up, what do you have to do? Right, since it's minus, the minus distributes to everything after it, which will not affect the first binomial. It will remain the same. But this 2x squared will become negative 2x squared, and the positive 5 will become negative 5, and now you just combine like terms. 4x squared minus 2x squared is 2x squared. Negative 20x won't combine with anything, and neither will negative 5, so it's A. You've just got to decide on the day of this test that you're going to try. You're not just going to think, oh my gosh, I don't understand, and move on. Just break it down. Write down the important things. Underline important things. You can't just get intimidated and guess. You've got to try. Number 49. Which statement best describes the graph of f parenthesis x plus 6? Is it up, left, right, or down?
Left.
Left. Correct. If the number is inside with the x, it's a horizontal shift, which means left or right. And it's opposite of what you would think. Plus 6 is actually left 6, minus 6 is right 6. You might want to write these down so when you're studying. If the number is outside of the parentheses, it's a vertical shift. And it is what you would think. Plus 6 on the outside would be up, minus 6 on the outside would be down. And so the correct answer for this one was B, left 6. Okay, number 50. Which of these is an even function? Well, when you hear the word even, what do you think of? Right, even numbers. 2, 4, 6, 8, even numbers. Well, let's look at each of these. Here's one to an even exponent, but then this x is to the first power, which is odd. This is to an odd exponent, this is to an odd exponent. Even, no exponent at all. Odd, even. Which choice only had even exponents? C. Number 51. Which statement best describes how the graph of g of x equals negative 3x squared compares to the graph of f of x, which is just x squared? Well, just looking at the two functions, what's the difference in them? Right, this one has a negative 3, this one has a positive 1. So really it's just negative 3. What all will that negative 3 do to x squared? It'll make it go down, which is called a reflection, right? And look, if you're not sure, couldn't you just graph each one? Start out by graphing just x squared, and then in the second line, graph negative 3x squared. Okay, blue is going to be the original, red is going to be the one with the negative 3. Okay, see how it turned it upside down over the x-axis? Okay, so we're looking for the word reflection, which A does not have, the rest of them do. What will the negative, so the negative reflects it, what does the 3 do to it? It stretches it, and look, this one says nothing about a stretch at all. This one does, but 1/3, and our factor is not 1/3. Okay, and plus it says shrink, and that's not even the right number. And then D says factor of 3, which is what it is. So yeah, just graph both of them if you're having trouble doing it without a picture. Okay, 52. A flying disc is thrown into the air from a height of 25 feet at time t equals 0. The function that models this situation is h of t equals negative 16t squared plus 75t plus 25, where t is measured in seconds and h is height in feet. What values of t best describe the times when the disc is flying in the air? Anybody get an answer? What would you do? Like, any of these questions that are really wordy, but they have an equation, what can you do? You can graph it. So y equals negative 16t squared plus 75t plus 25. Okay, look. It's in the air until how long? 5. Now, when you look at this graph and somebody asks you about the domain, doesn't it technically go left forever as it's going down and it's getting further to the right as it's going down? But the domain is not all real numbers for this. Because at first when I was working this, I said all real numbers because it goes left forever, right forever. But in this particular scenario, the x-axis is the ground. And can you really go below ground? So really in this scenario, nothing below the x-axis matters. So it only goes from 0 to 5, which is A. Number 53. Use this table to answer the question. What is the average rate of change of f of x over the interval negative 2 to 0? So, Samantha, what are they asking you to do? Okay, what is average rate of change the same as? Slope. And what do you have to calculate slope? 2 points. Now, can you just pick any points you want to out of the table? Not for this one, because they specifically tell you interval -2 to 0. What does it mean when they say interval? The x-axis. So an x value of -2, an x value of 0, which means they want you to use that point and that point with those x values. If it had not had the interval part at the end, you could have used any points you wanted. But it tells you which points to use. So you have to use -2, or +15, and you have to use 0, 5. Now when you're calculating the slope, which I'm not sure, is that on your formula sheet, the slope formula? Okay, good. So what will it be? Okay, so tell me the numbers. That's fine, but if you do 15 minus 5, you have to do what? No. Think about it. That's opposite. If you do 15 minus 5, don't you have to do -2 minus 0? You have to go in the same order. You know what I mean? So that would be 10 over -2, which is -5. You could have done 5 minus 15, but in that case you would have had to have done 0 minus -2 or 0 plus 2. All right, number 54. What? You don't understand what? But the bottom was -2. It ended up being 5 minus 15 if you did it that way, and then 0 minus -2, and a minus negative, so -10 over 2, which is -5 still. Number 54. What is the end behavior of the graph f of x equals -0.25x squared minus 2x plus 1? If you had this question, what would you do? Right. Can't really do anything with it until you see the graph of that. Okay, so first type it in, negative minus 2x plus what? Okay, now let's read the statements as we look at the graph. So let me minimize my graph. Okay, as x increases, and remember x only runs left to right, so increases would be what direction? No, listen to the question, everybody. X is only left to right, so increases would be what direction? Right. As you go to the right side of this parabola, do the y values also increase? As you go right, you end up going down. As you go left, you go down. No matter which way you go, right or left, you go down. So aren't we looking for a statement? You might want to jot that down. Right down and left down. So don't we kind of have to know that both of the ends have to say decreases, and that's the only one that does, B? Okay, you may switch out. We will continue tomorrow.